Hello and welcome to the second video with Wolfgang and myself, Simon. We will be talking today about our prerequisites model that we've put together, all the prerequisites which we feel are necessary to begin an agile transformation. And today we'll be talking about the view from the what is it perspective.
Yeah, hello. Good. Yeah, it's exciting to continue this discussion. Last time we've been much more talking about the why. Are you even interested in or clarifying why you're interested in moving towards an agile way of working? And now, as you said, let's dive into what that means in terms of the what.
Yeah, because we've been working on this for a while now, haven't we, Wolfgang? It's I think we started this back in beginning of the year. We started looking at all of the different experiences that we'd had, and looking at what is it? Where did they go wrong? Where did they go right?
Yes.
And we came up with this model with these four views, which seem different. Clients have asked us, "Hey, what do you do?" or "Why are you doing this?" And we came up with these four views. And so the four views, we had the outcomes, which was why, which was around what outcomes do we want to get from this work that we're doing? How will we know we've got there? And when have we got them? So that's kind of the one view, which we looked at in the last chat that we did. And then we also looked at the change theory. What is it that we're doing? What's this all based on? What is this thing that's going to happen in our company, which is the what we're going to be looking at today. And we had the behaviors, which were around, well, who is it? What kind of behaviors are we expecting? What mindset changes? What kind of culture change can we expect in our organization from the work that we'll be doing? And the fourth view was what many people want to know straight off the bat, which is what actions are going to be taken, what do we need to do differently every day to make this thing work. And so we're working through those four views in these videos, these conversations that Wolfgang and I are having, that you can these conversations right now, and we'll be looking at the change theory today.
Right. And as we've discussed and observed earlier, there is for many different people, there's a different approach, different focus, different emphasis on any of those dimensions. But sooner or later, I don't know about you, but that's at least my experience. Sooner or later, you'll come across any of those four, right? And considerations. You might be starting with one or two, but ultimately, those four really are very foundational to help you really understand and shape and drive towards a successful agile journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of what we've been working on, really, isn't it? That we want to try to remove this challenge that people have way down the line when they've spent so much money and things just don't stick and don't work.
Exactly. And then there's all sorts of disappointment, blames, loss of money, loss of reputation for people. Maybe careers don't go the right way, and certainly the results aren't coming out for the business, for their customers, for their stakeholders as they're looking for. So I think it's very paramount. It's very important that we really discuss these things and kind of like front load the problem by thinking through, what could have gone wrong or what could go wrong. As you mentioned, we've seen in other cases where things actually didn't work out so well, and trying to, that's one part of an agile mindset, is always take something going wrong as a signal. Oh, here's an opportunity to learn, right, and do better in future. Right.
And there's what greater opportunities are there around now with all of the challenges that we face globally with this terrible pandemic. Exactly. And never more has it been seemingly so obvious, at least to me. I don't know what you feel about this, that the markets and everything change and can change so rapidly and so quickly that we have I don't know whether you have this saying in Germany. We were talking about sayings earlier on. The rug is pulled out from underneath you.
Yes.
So never more is the rug been pulled out from under so many companies with the challenges that we face. And we often you don't get a second go
Right.
these transformations. We want to make sure that it works, and that's kind of
Yes. Yeah, I want to make sure it works, and at the same time, don't fall into one of the traps, which, by the way, in this pandemic situation, I keep getting reminded in some of these discussions I can follow. Oh, give me the plan for how we come out of this over the next year or so. That's really difficult, right? I mean, go and plan, but be aware those plans will keep evolving and keep changing, right? The number one goal, or the number one factor in being successful there is to learn fast, right? To really understand when something didn't work as well. What do you take from it? What do you learn? How do you change your behavior, right?
Yeah. And being constantly adaptive, or is really the meaning of agility in the first place, is that we need to be able to adapt to our changing environment.
Right.
Any organization, or any organism for that matter, needs to be able to have feedback from its environment and adapt. Otherwise it will die.
Exactly. Yes.
So I guess should we have a look through our list that we've got together of some of the pitfalls and common challenges that we've seen, and so that we can sort of have a look through that, so anyone watching this can learn from our own experiences, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So the number one thing I would say is really be honest with yourself to really understand the changes you're talking about is not something to do on a rainy afternoon, right? This is something very substantial, very significant, and will require effort, resources, devotion, time, energy, right? All of these ingredients to really lead to the outcome you're looking for. Right. So be clear, this is a significant effort and needs to be treated as such.
And I think one of the biggest challenges is that often the changes actually have to occur in us as leaders as well. And we've both chatted about this many times, that often leaders feel that it's other people who need to make the change.
Yep.
And while this is the what is happening, this is what we're talking about today. So the what, one of the biggest cornerstones of the change in my mind is that leaders need to show up differently. Yes. And what we mean by show up differently is you need to behave differently, treat people differently, create a different kind of culture and energy space, if you like, the sort of feeling in the room that you're in, feeling in the organization, to allow people to behave differently.
Right.
And that often can be very hard for people who have been very successful for many years, who have now got to face this kind of challenges in their own way of managing.
Right. Yeah, it goes back to this, when you ask, let's say, your employees in a town hall meeting or any audience, who wants to change or who wants to be changed, right? Nobody wants to be changed. People might want to change certain things, so you somehow have to bring them in to the discussion. That isn't like, everybody gets to do whatever they want. However, they got to have a fair hearing, right? Their voices got to be heard about what they see as maybe dysfunction, as shortcomings of the current way of working, and find a way to involve them and become part of the solution of making things better, right? So that's part of it. As we discussed, leadership behavior, which has to change, the showing up differently, as you say, to the meetings, to the work, exhibit different behavior, and thus by giving a different example, is ultimately change the culture, the company culture of how we work here, how work gets done, how we influence each other, right? That's, I think, very, very important.
Yeah. So in a way, one of the warning signs is that the agile transformation, if you like, or the business changes that we want to make is delegated.
Yeah. Yes.
So if you have a bunch of leaders who are delegating this whole thing to a bunch of other people, then that's probably a sure sign that they're not really looking at themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things that I've come across a number of times was when it was really seen like, oh, go and help these engineers to clean up their act, right?
Yeah.
It's like these guys that never can't get anything ever delivered. Let them figure it out and let them get, clean and tidy, and that'll solve it.
Yeah, because if you think about it, that's kind of treating like a sort of transformation of business as a delivery issue.
Yeah, exactly.
These people over here aren't delivering, so we want to use Agile to get them to deliver.
Right.
And we think that that's going to somehow change our capability in that way.
Right.
Whilst that might well be an end result, it doesn't start there, and it can't start there.
Exactly, because
people are already doing the best they can.
Exactly.
That's another cornerstone really of the what is that we believe that we treat people how with unconditional positive regard, that they're doing the best they can, and that we are looking to change the system, the culture, the way the structure of processes around them, so that people can shine even greater. It's almost certainly that it's the way that we as leaders show up, or organizational leaders show up, and the process and structures are not allowing people to be the best they can.
Right. No, it's the holistic system, right? I mean, that's the other notion that we've been discussing. It's the system thinking that you need to have. It's about optimizing the whole, right? So how do we even understand what an opportunity, how do we discover opportunities for delivering value to our customers work? How do we commit to, how do we define what a product, a service we want to engage in delivering is really looking like? And then certainly the delivery and how we get it out there and how we keep updating it, et cetera, is certainly a very, very crucial part of being successful. But you have to look at this whole system, the whole value stream together. And that means you typically need, at least in current situations of organizations that I've had the opportunity to see, you need to look across the aisle, right? It typically is not just, oh, let's figure out how the engineers become more effective or even more efficient, right? You need to look at the whole thing. It's finding the right balance between making them more efficient, but also making them more effective by even understanding early on, is this really a worthwhile effort to invest into? Maybe, maybe not, right?
Yeah. And I think it is that system view which hopefully can help everybody align around delivery.
Yes.
But without that systemic view, and that takes into account all the different aspects, everything from legal to finance, HR, marketing, sales, the exec themselves, as well as any delivery capability.
Yes. So that speaks volumes to Agile is not a quick fix.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
It's pretty profound. And speaking in particular of these many different functions, things that I don't think work that well is if you expect everybody to kind of like just change on a dime after maybe having listened to a couple of our talks, or go through a 1 day, 2 day, maybe even a week worth of a training, and then everything changes. Possibly not. What is possibly, or I've seen more helpful, if you have your own Agile experiences within your immediate context, you actually build up this knowledge, this understanding of both the mechanics, the practices, as well as what's really behind it, the principles, the values, right? The mindset, what's really behind this, and how you approach problems differently. Now, when you meet and look at, okay, how can we as a system between sales, marketing, legal, operations, people, HR, and the delivery, engineering, what have you, product, how can we work better together? Now you're dealing on a different level. You're discussing things with a bit more background that hopefully, or I would think, makes it more realistic to actually achieve an improvement.
Yeah, and I think this systemic view and looking at all those different things is really key. I mean, if we use a sort of metaphor, we've been using a fantastic metaphor of the aeroplane taking off. Mm-hmm. And we know that there are so many pre-checks that you have to do before taking off. If we don't do those pre-checks, then, that's a big risk. I don't want to be on an airplane that's taking off where no one's done any pre-checks. And if we extend that metaphor a bit further and we think about what makes up an aircraft, what is it that's going to make sure this aircraft lifts off properly? Now, if you take a particular model of an aircraft, say a Boeing aircraft, you wouldn't then look at each separate part and say, well, how do I make this part more efficient? Well, look, from a Cessna craft over here, this has got a better wheels, so let's put that on the Boeing. Over here, we've got something from a helicopter which is really efficient for lifting off. So why don't we stick that on the aircraft, and we'll improve over here. So the ignition systems over here from another type of vehicle could fit into the aircraft because they're really good on that vehicle, and we just wouldn't do that. It's absolutely nonsense. Right. You have to look at the whole system,
right,
and say, well, if I'm improving this, how does that affect the other systems? And you would end up with a whole bunch of parts that don't fit together if you look at it. And that's what unfortunately happens in agile transformations when we say, right, how do we make delivery more efficient? What kind of tools can we use here? And then HR, we're looking at that separately and say, right, what do we need to do to make HR brilliant? And what do we need to do to make sales brilliant? And there's no connection.
Right. Yeah, no, and even for these connections, just sticking with your example with the HR, right? So when we make one observation, which is traditionally, if you have more individual-based incentives, for example, right, bonus schemers and goal setting, that doesn't usually help as much in really driving a team-focused improvement, right, of agile delivery teams or agile teams in general. So we can raise that, and we can have many conversations about it. When in a people or an HR organization, a team actually has made their own first agile experiences in working as a team, managing a backlog jointly, right, giving estimates jointly for us as a team, then all of a sudden the coin is dropping, right? And then when you have that next conversation, well, wait a minute, in order to improve our agility across the business, we need your help, right, to change our systems such that the engineering teams, the whatever other teams are more successful together. Right now, you have a much better base to have a conversation on and have a productive outcome.
Yeah, and when we think of all these changes going through, so we're looking at collectively and systemically changing the organization. We're looking at leaders behaving or showing up differently and doing different things in the day to have that impact. Then that's a lot of change going on in the organization. People's job roles will inevitably change, even if it's slightly. I mean, in some cases, their actual titles will change and who they report to might change. Right. But even if it's a slight change in the day-to-day of what they're doing, people often resist change. There's fear in change because it's something new. And so not only are we looking externally in terms of all the things going on, but we also need something to help people manage that change, to walk through that. And typically coaching, enough support, clarity, all these kind of things need to be thought about beforehand. How are we going to manage a whole bunch of people, potentially thousands of people, who are all going to be thinking, oh, am I going to have a job at the end of this? Right. And if it is, am I going to be capable of doing it?
Right.
So having a way of helping people, the staff, go through those changes, be supported and reduce that fear is absolutely critical.
Absolutely. And what will help, and this is maybe a link back to our previous conversation, understanding the purpose of why we're doing this goes a long way in helping people see the silver lining between what we're trying to do, why we're doing this, right? And also potentially finding their place in this new effort or in this new shape and form that we're about to build, right?
Absolutely. I mean, and then what we're doing is once you have a purpose, we're asking for help rather than doing things to people. And I think this, again, comes back down to this thing of how the actual purpose is a better business, not agile.
Yes.
Why should I change my job role and everything I'm doing for agile?
Right.
What is this? Who is this agile? Is it like this it's this sort of mystical entity of
Right.
the agile god that we're all trying to become agile.
Right.
But actually, we want better business, and agile gives us a fantastic way of looking at the business to make it better in some cases.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It helps your transparency, for example, right? Understanding problems or malfunctions or trends that are going in the right direction, understanding them earlier, because now all of a sudden, right, after you have transformed, you have people that are much more willing to speak up, make observations in a fearless environment, right? Not feeling the risk of being retributed for, I've seen something that, makes me wonder whether this is sustainable or whether this is good for our customers, good for our business, right? In a truly agile, transformed way of working, this wouldn't be a problem. This would actually be welcomed as an opportunity to become better much faster than you otherwise could, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key. It's looking at that real underlying business outcomes, and then which is the why, which we talked about in the last conversation. And then now it's like, well, what is the theory? What is the what? And I think we've covered some fantastic points there. Should we summarize some of the points in a sort of of a list, so that we can maintain that clarity? Because we've talked about a lot of good things here. So where should we start to summarize?
Yeah. So first, I would say, again, you mentioned that before, Agile is not the goal.
Yeah.
It is the business outcome, and Agile is a means to that goal.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that you also very rightly said that it's not a quick fix. So it's not going to happen in an afternoon. And I've definitely heard some clients say, well, how long is this going to take? Is it going to take as long as 6 to 8 weeks? More like 6 to 8 years, probably, or hopefully not that long, but certainly to work to move towards a certain progress, certain rhythm in the organization. It is a multi-year
effort. Yes.
Normally.
And then the next one is, it's not just about executing a transformation plan, right? So first and foremost, it's not about throwing an agile transformation into kind of like a traditional plan-based, waterfall-driven machine and expect a wonderful agility to come out at the other end. That's not, right? It's about finding from where we are today, how can we improve, and keep checking, right, according to certain measurements that you've decided, how you figure out how your business is performing and how it's improving its performance, whether you are moving in that direction, right? And it is applying the inspect and adapt kind of rhythm on the change itself.
Yes. So important. I mean, otherwise we're just using the old way of working, the old organizational beliefs, to try to move in a new set of organizational beliefs, and that's not doing as we are being. Right. It's almost hypocritical in a way. We believe in this agile way of working where we iterate, and we're going to plan it all out in a big long plan where we know everything up front.
Right.
It's like it's completely incongruent. It's never going to work.
No.
No.
That's right. Yeah.
So the other thing we talked about was leadership. So a new way of leading. Very, very important. And one of those aspects of leadership is looking internally. What is it that I'm doing as a leader, which is maintaining a status quo? What is it that I could do differently, which is in alignment with the outcomes that I'm trying to create in my business? How do I need to manage differently in order our organization to take a different shape?
Yeah, and very important and very closely related to that is the leadership behavior is ultimately what shapes the culture of how we work, right? How work gets done, how we influence each other, how we make changes happen. And so for a successful and lasting transformation, it's very important that we understand this goes underneath our skin, right? This goes deeper, and it is about, first and foremost, a people-based change rather than just a process-based change. Processes and practices will change, most likely too, but it's really the people where the key lever is.
Yeah, I think one of the probably the best ways of embracing that as an individual and as a leadership team is to look at professional coaching.
Hmm.
So the very nature of learning professional coaching changes the way that you look at the world. And I think that certainly we have both experienced organizations which are very expert led.
Yep.
So we employ people because they're very expert level at certain skills and tasks. And really, as a leader, we need to go beyond that. We need to evolve beyond the expert, and we need to start looking and growing into this supporting role of creating an environment for other people to connect and thrive, creating a company which is able to experiment rather than always having to be right. Because we know that we can't always be right in this new marketplace, in this new world. And so if we have a culture of always being right, then unfortunately people aren't going to say when things are not working. They're not going to have new innovative ideas, because if they have to be right, they may well be wrong. And so nobody wants to be criticized or blamed if things go wrong. And these are all things which, when they aggregate up, are going to create a culture and an output and outcomes which are not in alignment with market. And that is going to eventually destroy the company. So the way that leaders turn up in terms of growing beyond this expert mindset, creating a supporting environment, is not only a nice to have, it's absolutely essential for any type of agile transformation to even be considered.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that is the cornerstone. And then as a derivative of that, you will have to reconsider, most likely, a number of your current structures, processes, maybe even how you set up departments and the like, and evolve and potentially change them. However, the key part is the people change, right? The behavioral change that will then require or be in line with changes on the structure. It's not, I would not recommend going in now, redraw all the department boundaries and stitch a label Agile on it and then check, we've done it. That's not the idea.
Because that kind of approach, which we see a lot, is not in alignment with getting outcomes. It's not in alignment with supporting people through change. It's not in alignment with helping people ask for help and so that they can contribute equally. It's not respecting people in terms of their own expertise and how well that they know their own jobs. And often it's not respectful of the actual real life communications which go on with inside an organization, outside of the normal structure, the normal reporting lines or the process lines that people actually need to get stuff done. And instead, what we could look at instead was that removing silos. People's behavior is often limited by the structures that they are in. And if we want to see a behavioral shift, that needs to be in alignment with the type of structure changes that we see, to get rid of silos, to get rid of the old way of compartmentalizing different job sets up, and look at those outcomes and optimizing structures around flow so that we can get things to our customers with a customer-centric approach, so that we can deliver things quickly from ideas, so that we can learn and adapt. Are the structures in alignment with that kind of thinking?
Yes,
yeah,
very much so. Yeah. Great.
Fantastic. Well, I think that that certainly gives a lot to think about, I think, in terms of the prerequisites. For further prerequisites and more details, we do have a downloadable checklist that we've put together, and we'll put the link on the video. It should be appearing about nowish. And we can also put it in the comments as well. And then also, Wolfgang, we've also talked about that we are open for helping organizations as well. So if people are getting stuck, if people do want to dive into this, you do need help, then feel free to reach out to either one of us.
Yes.
And we're happy to see what we can do.
Yes. Great. Yeah, it was a pleasure to discuss this one more time and a little further, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you. This has been excellent. And we'll see you all on our next conversation, the third installment. See you all soon.
Thanks for your interest. See you soon.
Take care.
Take care.